Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ProVideo Pages webinar and podcast series. I today am joined by Marc Brookland, who was introduced to me by Lisa Snow, and Lisa knew what she was doing when she connected us, and we hit it off right away, and we started talking about metrics, and just really excited about the content that we just recorded for Marc's webinar. A little bit of information about Marc. Marc is the founder and CEO of SEO Locale, which is a full-service digital marketing agency. He started SEO Locale from his apartment in Old City, Philadelphia in 2017 with just himself and his laptop, and he has since grown it to 15 employees and over 220 clients, and recently was just named to Philadelphia's fastest 15 growing companies. That's a great achievement. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, that must feel good. You have plans to grow this, don't you?
Yeah, it's funny. These weren't exactly the plans when we first started. Originally, it was just me and my partner, Nick. And then we figured we kind of have a lot of work going on. We have a lot of clients. We should probably hire someone. So we hired our first employee. And we hired a second, and then it was the third. And then we were like, yeah, we probably won't go past 7. So we get to 7, and then we're like, oh, we could go a little bit more. And it just kind of snowballed into this whole thing where, now we have 15 employees and a little over 220 clients, and we have expectations to go to 25. And then we'll reassess then. But for now, the goal is 25. And I'm sure it'll be more than that once we get there.
So why do you think, it's like it's got momentum, right? Why do you think that you're able to grow like this,
Yeah, there's a couple of things that go into it. First and foremost, I think that we have a really great product in place where, believe it or not, our product actually works. And we have a team that works hard to implement that process and implement our strategies. And our team works extremely hard to make sure that the campaign is successful. The other thing that I think really has helped us grow is our retention rate. And the reason that our retention rate has been so high is because of our transparency. We're very open with our clients. We're very honest with them. We set proper expectations. We don't put up any smoke and mirrors when they ask us questions or what we're doing or what our strategy is. For some reason, and I'm not sure why it happened or when or anything like that, but in our industry, people intentionally try to keep clients in the dark. It's almost like they don't want anyone to know what they're doing or why they're doing it. And I never quite understood that. I think when you are open and you try to educate the clients as what's going on, it makes them feel more comfortable, makes them trust you, even if they have no clue what you're talking about. They at least appreciate and understand, oh, they're actually doing something. It's, SEO isn't something you can touch. It's this fake digital thing that no one really understands.
Yeah.
So when you're able to discuss it openly, it makes them more comfortable.
Isn't that interesting? It's so true. I never really thought about it like in the dark versus transparent. Obviously that's, applied to anything. Those are opposites. But especially when it comes to SEO services, it's hard to, you want to quantify, but at the same time, it's a long play, like you said, and it's hard to quantify. I think from my experience, first of all, it is hard to understand. And it's like going to the doctor. This is one of those areas of marketing where you guys are the experts. You tell us what to do and you do it. And then I can spend my brain power on other things. But the problem that I have with that mentality of the clients is that they're missing out on the opportunity to collaborate with you, communicate what their goals are and what they're doing so that you can then actually treat them better. If we're looking at the doctor analogy, you got to know my symptoms, right? And the symptoms that I came to you with, and this is like an ongoing relationship with a physician, that if I don't tell you what's going on with me, what I've been doing in my business and things like that, then I'm not going to get the best advice from you and the best, although like a doctor, the treatment. You're doing the treatment on your end. And I'm just, Thankfully, it's not painful. But yeah, so I think a lot of clients don't read those monthly reports. And I find it tragic. Honestly,
Yeah,
it kind of ticks me off from both ends because I think that you guys have a responsibility, not just you, but in general,
right,
a
right.
responsibility, but you can only do it if the client is engaged.
Yeah, and I can tell you, as a matter of factly, that almost none of our clients look at any of our reporting. And, it's a couple of things. One, when things are good, you tend to not care. So they say, "Oh, I'm getting leads. I don't really care what's going on." The other stuff is maybe they're too busy. They could be a team of one, team of two, team of three, whatever it is. They just don't have time to focus on this. Not saying any of that stuff is right or wrong, but we used to send manual reports to every single one of our clients. I remember going through Google Analytics for 100 different people and pulling out different information and putting together a report and sending it out.
Yeah.
Now, for Nick, this coding wizard, he made this whole customer platform where they can log in and it has access to all their stuff. So reports are automatically generated, keywords are automatically tracked. You have access to see all of your conversions, all of your content updates. I mean, really everything that you would want to see, what's going on, what we're doing, what's going on is in that dashboard.
Hmm.
And I can tell you how many times clients log into their portal and they don't.
Right.
But we've literally made it as easy as possible and as simple as possible, as streamlined as possible to help encourage our clients to stay up to date what's going on. So,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
is
you got my
it is what
mind
it is.
thinking about like marketing, and it's all about engagement. So just to wrap this little topic up, what would you say to the business owner, not one of your clients, but it could be one of your clients, about getting the most out of the relationship with their SEO agency?
Collaboration. We tell every single client that we have that the way that we get our best results is by having that dialogue with you, is being able to collaborate with you. Yes, we're the SEO experts and we know what strategy is going to be best to implement and what's going to get you the most traffic and the most clicks and things like that. But we need your feedback on how well is that traffic performing. It's not very easy for us to know, for a lot of these B2C businesses who aren't selling things online, the quality of the clients, of the inquiries that they're getting. We can certainly see contact form submissions and we can tell if it's spam or if it's a legit client. But even if it's a legit inquiry, we don't know if they were referred to you. We don't know if they're a repeat customer. We have no idea what people are calling you, are saying. We don't know what they're emailing you saying. So that type of feedback is extremely important for us to know. So I think collaboration is extremely important in making sure that the campaign is successful.
Makes a lot of sense there. How often do you communicate, like have a conversation with your clients?
Minimum monthly. Having said that, we do have a lot of clients who postpone, they delay, don't show up, whatever the
Yeah,
case might
yeah.
be. But we at least try to set something up every month with our clients where we have 30 days is the best time frame where you can give them a good snapshot of here's what we've done over the last 30 days. Here's how we compare this month compared to the last month. So that's really the best snapshot. So it's typically at least a month, but sometimes things happen.
So thinking about being a good client of your digital marketing agency, I do hear like clients that I've worked with, we get back the report and it says this month versus last month. But, for that goes right over the head a lot of times because it's like, oh, it went from 7.9 to 9.4. It's like, well, what does that mean? And then that engagement, I'm really intrigued about that monthly meeting that you're encouraging your clients to book and show up for.
Well, usually in that meeting is the opportunity where we reshare client, here is what we're seeing. We always start, what questions do you have? And if they say, well, I don't know what I'm looking at, then we know we have to go through everything and explain it to them, hold their hand, all that kind of things. Some of our clients who have been with us for a long time, or some clients who are just more savvy than others for whatever reason, they might say, I saw this number, this number, this number. I want to know why that happened, or I want to know what you did to make this happen, things like that. So you can have a little bit of a more advanced conversation. So, I mean, it's really a case by case on how that meeting goes and what that meeting is. Some clients, this is the first time they've ever done it. So we're holding their hand through however long it takes them to understand what we're doing. Some clients know just as much as the next person when it comes to SEO, and you're having a pretty advanced conversation.
Yeah. So it seems to me that based on what you've shared, to be a good client is, if you are paying a digital marketing agency on a monthly basis, is to be engaged and have a dialogue, understand the metrics, but also where you're going with it. What do you need from me? A question I always love to ask when I'm on a help call is, what should I be asking you? What are the best practices? And so, because you're going to get more out of that relationship and get better results if you give more information to your marketing agency. So,
Yeah, 100%.
in the webinar, you talk about SEO versus SEM, and I really appreciate you covering that, because that's something that you have to learn. You have to learn the lingo. You have to learn what these things are. And over time, they evolve. And so, am I correct in saying that basically everybody should pay attention to on-page SEO, which is where their web developer has optimized their website with keywords and for SEO so that they show up? And then the SEM is where they're actually paying on a regular basis. Am I right there?
Yes, the on-page SEO, that is an element of your overall SEO strategy that can help your website show up as high as possible in search engines. Typically, if you're working with myself, for example, or any other digital marketing agency, you have what's likely a flat fee that you're being charged for to continue working on a monthly basis your SEO. And your paid search strategy, that budget is being paid directly to Google or Bing or whomever you're advertising with. And you are paying to be listed at the very top of the search engine for whatever query that you're targeting.
Great. And so, where is that line? We talked about this as we were planning the questions for the podcast here. At what point is it worthwhile for somebody to cross that line and start paying? I know in the webinar you mentioned you've got to track your ROI. I mean, the whole webinar is on metrics. But what does it look like? How can someone identify and go, oh, now maybe it's time for me to step up and start?
Whichever medium that you may be starting on, whether it's paid search or SEO, whatever, if you see that that medium is working for you, it's probably worth investing in branches of that medium. So if you see that your digital marketing is working, it's probably worth trying social media, paid search, whatever else that you might not be doing. Clearly, your customers are there and they're engaging and it's converting for you. What I always try to tell my clients, we work with a lot of small businesses, a lot. And what I always try to make clear to them is SEO takes time. Paid search is much faster, but paid search still takes some time. So I will always tell them, if you don't have a budget for your SEO program for at least 6 months, you should save up a little bit and then we can help you out on the SEO side. On paid search, if you don't have the budget for, I would say 3 months, it's probably not worth testing paid search. So it's really all about making sure that you have the appropriate budget saved up where you know that you can invest those dollars for the future. If you're coming to me or anyone, I got $1,000 and if this doesn't convert for me, I'm going out of business. Digital marketing probably isn't the route where you can go.
Right. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that, because that 3 months time that you refer to for SEM, I mean, why you need that time is very different from SEO. For SEM, it's to make sure that you're optimizing, the messaging, basically tweaking it to get the best results from it. So is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, both campaigns, you're going to have to be tweaking and updating and editing different things. The reason that paid search can take a little bit longer than 30, 45, 60 days, whatever, is because you're probably doing a lot of A/B testing when you start out. You're trying to figure out which keywords work the best, which ad copies, which landing pages, what different assets you can use. So that's the reason that you're waiting usually closer to 3 months to get the best results.
Yeah. What would you say is a decent range for somebody to start out, like a monthly range? They're just getting started with SEM. What should they expect to be paying?
It's so variable. It really depends on your target radius and what your industry is. Generally speaking, if someone doesn't have $1,000, $1,500 a month to spend on paid search, I would usually steer them away from that. On the SEO side, our average client is usually between the $750 to $1,500 a month range.
Okay.
But that's just because people, again, we work with a lot of B2C, a lot of home service type of businesses, and they all want to be as competitive with all of the other people out there. And they're all friends with each other, and they all know what the other person spends. And like, oh, this guy's spending $10,000 a month. I need to spend that too. Okay, sure.
Yeah, exactly. We can help
So
you.
it's personal preference, but usually for most local businesses, you're probably going to be somewhere between $500 to $1,500 a month. It just really all depends.
Yeah. What about like I'm sure that, the home services and those B2C companies, when you refer to local companies, I don't want to, some people listening to this might not understand, but a local company is one that does business in their local area that in the past, you probably would have looked them up in a phone book. They may have a brick and mortar location, or they may be providing a service at somebody's home. But then you've also got the solopreneurs for whom location is not a big thing. They're not restrained by that. They're an online business. Obviously, they're not going to be spending $10,000. The HVAC company may need to spend, but for somebody who maybe is a coach or is offering a professional service, what would you say about the range of what they need to invest?
Again, it depends. So taking the example of business coach, which is extremely competitive. If you wanted to focus nationally, you could easily be spending $2,000 or $3,000 a month on your SEO campaign.
Yeah.
And probably even more than that on paid search campaign. It really all depends on what SEO they currently have in place, what the landscape currently looks like, how competitive the market is. Usually, generally speaking, ranking nationally so that everybody understands, the smaller the target areas, the easier it is to rank. So if we're targeting, for anyone who's familiar with the greater Philadelphia area, Richboro, Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up, this little baby place. You can rank for anything you want in Richboro. But Richboro is located in Bucks County. So if you want to rank for Bucks County, that's going to be a little bit harder. And ranking in Philadelphia is going to be harder than Bucks County. Ranking for Pennsylvania is going to be harder than Philadelphia. Ranking nationally is going to be harder than ranking in Pennsylvania. So the larger you get, the more difficult it is, the more resources that are required, the more work that's needed, the larger the campaign is going to have to be. So it depends on all these different things. Most of the time that we're working with a national company, they're usually starting at somewhere between $1,000, $1,500 a month, and they're going up from there. And most of them that we're working with are usually spending closer to 2 or 3.
Okay. But the key thing here that people need to remember is that that's not money being thrown away. You're getting an ROI on that is far greater. And the key is to set it up in such a way that you're getting the best results for your money. So this isn't just, oh, I'll place an ad in the local magazine and see what happens. No, you get to measure this and determine and tweak things and optimize it. So thank you. Along those lines, I know that before somebody would start working with you or a digital marketing agency, they should have some things in place. Can you tell me what that might look like from their website, from, a marketing plan, from knowing about their ideal clients? And, can you share a little bit about that?
I think for us, the best thing that a customer could have is a history of their Google Analytics setup. That way we have a benchmark of what we're working with. It's harder for us to work with a client who has never had analytics set up, and they ask us to, benchmark where we expect to be, or benchmark this, benchmark that. Well, we don't have a benchmark. First, we need to get a baseline. Give us the first 30, 60, 90 days to benchmark where you are, and then we can compare the success that we've had. But if someone has had analytics for even just a year or 2 years, we're easily able to say, you joined us at the start of 2025, and this is how the first 6 months of 2025 has gone. Let's compare that to the same time frame in 2024, and we can show you how much has improved.
Right. This then leads me to thinking, what have you been doing for marketing? What have you been doing to drive traffic to your website? Are you doing a lot of networking? Are you doing ads? Are you whatever it is, I've got to think plays into the recommendations that you've got. And hopefully they can free up some money somewhere else with something that's not necessarily performing, so that they invest, take money from one thing and put it into SEO or SEM could really make sense.
Yeah, well, it all ties back to tracking your marketing efforts. If someone wants to put an ad in the phone book or whatever, be my guest. But make sure you have the tracking in place to know how well or how probably not well it's performing. Even networking, which is of course a little bit harder, but because you don't have a specific tracking, but how much time are you spending, including your travel time? How many referrals have you gotten? How many referrals have you closed? I think time is one of the biggest things that people tend to forget is a big investment.
You're speaking my love language there. I look at
Okay.
budgeting for small businesses as both money and time. Because thankfully there's a lot that companies and that individuals can do in their marketing that doesn't cost much money, but it does cost a fair amount of time.
Right.
And that's why I remember we were planning this topic and we decided to focus on the digital marketing because some of these other things are harder to quantify,
Right.
which then brings us into the webinar topic itself. I'd love to have you just briefly introduce the webinar topic and why it matters to you and what somebody's going to learn from it.
Yeah. So the topic was the importance of tracking your digital marketing. The different things that we covered were all your social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, content marketing, email marketing, SEO. For me, those are really the key things that people are all advertising in and spending their time and effort on, but don't always have the proper tracking in place to know how effective those things are. And I think that that's why this topic was so important for me. We just have so many clients all the time who would come to me and say, how much traffic have I gotten from Yelp? How much traffic have I gotten from Angie's List or whatever medium it is? And we tell them, well, yeah, it doesn't look like you got much of anything from them. And they're spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars, not just to be listed on those platforms, but to get leads from those platforms that they aren't closing. And they have no idea. They have nothing in place to properly tell them, this is how much money I've spent in this time frame on this particular medium. This is what I got out of it. And it kills these businesses. And I mean, and selfishly, sometimes we're the ones that are on the hook for these other platforms not being able to deliver them. But business only have so much money. So even if something is working, even if SEO is working for them, something could be causing such a dent in their bank that they start axing everything.
Yeah. That's, I think that's good. He just opened up a whole nother, tangent here, but it is about evaluating your marketing on a regular basis because I've seen clients of mine talk to people during networking events with my local builders association where somebody is spending money, to the tune of, $1,000 or per month or more. And they're tied into a contract that they thought sounded good at the time. And they fell prey to a salesperson who was promising things that may or may not be delivered. Plus it's bringing them clients, I'm thinking Angie's or Yelp here, that are not their ideal client. And so knowing this gets back to owning your marketing. If you know who your ideal client is, you can say when somebody contacts you, whether it's Yelp or Angie or whoever, to say, we can reach your audience and bring you leads where, if you know who your ideal client is and you know what leads you're getting from those platforms, that that's not a worthwhile investment. Another thing to keep in mind with those paid leads is that it's like a hose, right? As soon as you turn it off, you don't have anything left. It's
Right.
empty. You've not built anything like you do with SEO, and you haven't built a lead generation system. You've just turned off paid leads.
Right.
So,
I don't really want to get into it, but I can't begin to describe how much I dislike Yelp and Angie's lists.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult for a lot of business owners to understand how to do these things, wrap their minds around all these things. And sometimes it's difficult to show them the important information that they need to see.
Yeah. Yeah. So just wrapping up this section of the podcast, I'd encourage people to start taking ownership of all of their marketing. Do an audit of where you're spending money so that you can start making better decisions and start measuring your marketing. Because it only takes one or two of these tactics that are not delivering to really throw things off. And I think you mentioned at one point, can kill a business. So get involved, contact Mark or me. We can have conversation with you and help point you in the right direction. So moving on, I love asking this question of my guests, which is, what is the coolest part of what you do when working with a client? What excites you?
There's nothing better for me or anyone who works at SEO Locale when we hear from a client who says, essentially, you guys have changed my business. It's almost kind of like, to an extent, we're helping them reach their goals or like help make their dreams come true, at the risk of sounding cheesy. But that's kind of what it's like when you have a client who's that excited that they can't believe they found us. Is just like, that's why I deal with everything else.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that. And that's the way it's supposed to be in a perfect world, right?
Right. Exactly.
So next question. Is there a specific piece of technology or an app that you cannot imagine living your life without?
So I thought a lot about this one, and it's not necessarily an app, but maybe it's technology. So my children, when we go on trips or vacation or whatever, and they have to sleep in a bed that's not theirs, we have these sleep pods that it's like a tent that you have to make, and it goes over the crib and it just like blacks everything out. And the difference in their sleep from with the sleep pods, without the sleep pods, is just like life changing.
Okay, so is there anything technological about these sleep pods? My kids, we didn't have sleep pods.
I think it's just the advancement in baby products.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Yeah, products have advanced quite a bit. Thank you for that. Okay, we've talked about a lot of things here, but in one or two sentences, what would you hope that our listeners take away from our conversation today?
The biggest thing that I hope they take away is what the presentation is all about. And that's how to better understand your marketing efforts and how to better evaluate what you're doing to get the best ROI.
And with that, I think we've wrapped it up. That's like the mic drop. That's really why we're here and why we put in the effort to bring this content to you. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, both in the podcast and in the webinar. And encourage people, if you haven't already listened to the webinar, go and click on the link that we've got in the description. And also keep in mind that there's a handout that makes it easy to take notes and keep track of the great content without feeling overwhelmed by all the information that Mark is throwing at you during it. It's well worth a listen. I took copious notes when we were recording. And again, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
Thank you. I appreciate it.